Huntek'e müsaade edersen bir Londra'ya gidelim. Huntek Markets piyasa analisti Richard Perry var karşımızda. Richard, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are talking a lot about the dollar's weakness right now. The euro dollar is above 123s, and also when we look at the dollar index, it's moving towards 89s. Do you expect that move to go further? Because it's not just euro and dollar. Also, we see some huge market flows at GBP and Japanese yen as well.
Yes, it's almost become a bit of a perfect storm for the dollar at the moment. It's getting hit across the Forex major pairs today. We're seeing yen strength, we're seeing euro strength, sterling strength as well, but also primarily a lot of these pairs are also being driven by dollar weakness. And I think that dollar weakness is going to be continuing through 2018. I don't really see where that's going to improve the dollar at all, really, in the coming months, because we're seeing the dollar, which is sort of mid towards late part of its tightening cycle in terms of the Fed, and you're seeing the other central banks beginning to run with the ball now. We're seeing sort of early signs of moves towards tightening, and what you tend to see is currencies performing well in the early stages of tightening. Subsequently, we're seeing the euro stronger, we're seeing the yen stronger as well. In terms of sterling, we're seeing the UK Brexit sort of debate still rolling on, but improvements are starting to come through. Obviously, we had the visit by Macron last week, so that's helping sterling strength near term. But generally, we're seeing the dollar, which is under pressure, and I think that's going to continue. Steve Mnuchin's comments have certainly impacted on a near-term basis today, saying that a weaker dollar is positive for US trade. But I think generally speaking, the US trade deficit is still declining or worsening, and that is also a dollar negative aspect as well. So we're seeing just general dollar weakness, and I think that's going to continue.
But what is the main story on that? Because when we look at US economy, it's moving and it's growing over 3% after 2 consecutive quarters. And when we look at the companies, they are doing well as well. When we look at Fed, they are making rate hikes and they tend to make more. So why is that weakening?
Well, as I said, I think what the US is, in terms of the rate tightening cycle, is it's fairly well sort of down the road on that. And I think that what you tend to see is currencies getting traction earlier in the cycle. And you're seeing that the market's fairly well priced in for 2, maybe 3 rate hikes this year. And in terms of the Fed comments, we're seeing a lot of the Fed members, again, sort of suggesting probably 3 rate hikes this year. So there's no real expectation that unless the Fed starts to accelerate and get progressively more hawkish in its views, I think that the dollar is going to really struggle from that. I think that positive growth numbers have already been factored in. We've already seen that the uplift from the US tax reform being already priced in, and the market's still sort of factoring in, I think, further down the line, US growth, and that's not really impacting in terms of the Treasury yields, which are pulling high. And at this stage in the cycle, it doesn't look as though that Treasury yields are the driver of the US dollar crosses. It is more that the Euro bond yields are the driver, say, for example, on Euro dollar. So I think that is one of the reasons why we're seeing dollar weakness continuing.
The last question is about ECB meeting for tomorrow as well. What do you expect to hear from ECB, and what do you expect in terms of market reaction on the bond market at Europe as well?
Well, I think that the ECB is going to be moving towards changing the language, but probably not tomorrow. We haven't got the staff forecasts tomorrow, and in the meeting minutes in December, they suggested it was going to be early in 2018 where they would start to sort of revisit that forward guidance. I think what the markets will be focused on will be the size and or duration comment in the forward guidance, and also the extension or the potential to extend it beyond September 2018. However, I think it's too early, and the markets are not really anticipating too much movement, I think, from the ECB tomorrow. I think it's likely to be more in March when we start to see the movement from the ECB in terms of the language. Now, obviously, we've seen a great deal of euro strength, and we're seeing that the bund yields are pulling higher again, sort of breaking out and looking towards the 0.5, 0.6 area, and I think that we're seeing that if that continues to move to the upside, that's going to be a real driver of the euro in the coming weeks and months. But at the moment, in terms of the reaction for tomorrow, I think it's going to be a lot of volatility around the press conference. You might even see a bit of a near-term sort of blip to the downside, but I think ultimately the euro will continue to strengthen in the coming weeks and months.
Richard Perry, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Richard Perry'nin görüşlerini